Roger, Navy Heavy, runway 26, clear for takeoff.
Clear takeoff, runway 26, Heavy, good. United Heavy.
Welcome to the Aeropedia podcast. I'm Ashwin.
And I'm Peter. And we have Captain Jeff Whiteman with us today. Captain Whiteman serves as the UPS Airlines Chief Pilot. He's responsible for UPS operations, overseeing all UPS flight crews, safety, regulatory compliance, and operational performance for the 3,400 crew members in UPS fleets. Captain Whiteman is a current and qualified MD11 captain, as well as holding type ratings on the Boeing 757, 767, Beech 1900, and DC10 aircraft. Captain Whiteman is also a retired lieutenant colonel from the U.S. Air Force, where he served 22 years and was a command pilot with over 6,700 total military flying hours and almost 6,000 hours in the KC-10. Captain Whiteman holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Management from the U.S. Air Force Academy and a Master of Business Administration and Aviation from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Welcome, Captain Whiteman.
Jeff, welcome to the Aeropedia podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Ashwin and Peter. Great to be here and to meet you folks and to spend some time together.
Great to have you.
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at your entire experience, which we'll get into, right? I don't know about Peter, but I feel like we could make legitimately a 4-hour episode with everything that you've done in your career, and nobody would be bored.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel very lucky and blessed to be able to have been in the industry now for almost 40 years, and it's been fantastic.
Wow.
So nonetheless, we're going to make a 40-minute podcast, so here we go.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So let's start with how you got into aviation, right, Jeff, and just walk us through your career and all the amazing things that you've done.
Yeah, sounds great. So I grew up in the Seattle area. So Peter, not too far from where you grew up there in Portland, a town called Federal Way, which is about 15 miles from Renton and one of the Boeing manufacturing facilities. So it was a combination really of that. Plus my mom was a flight attendant for United for 30 years. So I grew up around United and always wanting to be a pilot and to be in the industry. So back in the 80s, everyone remembers Top Gun when it came out. So I went the military path, went to the Air Force Academy and graduated in 1992 with a major in management. I was lucky enough to fly KC-10s, which is air refueling. Did that for about 8 years on active duty, and then went into the reserves for another 14 years and retired from the reserves in 2014. Got off active duty in late 2000, went to United. Flew the 7576 out of San Francisco. Unfortunately, after 9/11, I was furloughed and then became a full-time reservist out at Travis Air Force Base in California. January of 06, learned about a great job at UPS, a management pilot position, and joined the UPS team then. Moved my family out to Louisville, Kentucky, where we still live, which is where UPS Airlines is headquartered. On the MD11, still on the MD11 today. You can see the nice MD11 picture behind me. And sidebar there, Peter, that's not McDonald's, right? That's McDonald.
Excellent.
Big podcast one, right?
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. And in a variety of different positions here at UPS, a lot of it's been in the operations, in the chief pilot world, in the training center. Spent a couple years as the Louisville Chief Pilot, and we'll talk about our structure here in a little bit. And then the last couple of years as the Airlines Chief Pilot. Married for 26 years, and I have 2 kids that live up in the Cincinnati area.
Nice. So again, there's just so much we can talk about in general here, but just tell us about your experience. You've been with UPS for about 14 plus years at this point, right? You said 06, so
2006.
Oh wow, so it's even more than that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, how has the company and the role of the pilot with the company evolved in the long time that you've been there?
Yeah, I mean we've obviously transformed a lot over the years. Continued to grow. We're about 3,400 pilots today. We have 4 different domiciles. 2,500 of those pilots are based in the Louisville area. We've got 600 up in the Anchorage domicile. We have a couple hundred that are down in Ontario, Southern California, and a couple hundred down in the Miami domicile. So We obviously fly the 747, 400, and Dash 8. We have the MD11, the A300, and then the 75 and 76. So obviously about 800 flights a day, flying all over the globe. We're getting ready to enter our most busy time, peak season. We always look forward to it, and helping Santa deliver all the great Christmas presents across the globe.
That's amazing. Awesome to see the UPS flying more and more during this time of year.
You're probably aware of, back in April, it's a great time to be a UPSer because we just won the USPS contract. So our competitor had that for over 20 years, and now we have that. And it really has generated a lot of extra volume for us, a lot of extra work, a lot of extra block hours in flying. As such, we've hired about 275 pilots this year, and we're growing, and it's a great time to be a UPSer.
Amazing. That's awesome. Turning to your role in the management, many of our listeners, we know about pilots and we've heard about that, but your role is in a leadership role of the flight operations and that. Could you maybe explain more about what does that role really entail and how is it different than a regular pilot?
Yeah, thanks. So as the airline's chief pilot, obviously I'm responsible for the welfare of our pilots. And, I kind of joke, I'm fortunate that I'm able to talk with our new hire pilots as well as our new captains. Our pilots come back for, I call it a rebrowning flight crew factors at the 3-year point. And I try to talk to all those classes, and I joke with them that I'm the CEO. And they kind of chuckle and I go, no, you're not the CEO. That's Carol Tomei, right? And I go, you're exactly right. But I'm the chief experience officer. And, when they have an issue, they have a problem, right? It's all about establishing that trust with our crew members so they feel comfortable calling my team and getting whatever help that they need. Our flight ops vision statement, when you think about an airline, right, the most important thing to an airline, the foundation is safety, right? We have to operate a safe airline. And so we're going to operate the world's safest, most competitive and cost-efficient airline where our people enjoy coming to work. And I really like that last piece, especially from the chief pilot perspective, right? Because if our people enjoy coming to work, right, if that experience is as good as it can be, then we're all going to be successful, right? And it comes down to, leadership and taking care of your people. And I've got a great team here in the chief pilot office. And we work hard every day to support our crew members, support our operation, make sure we do it safely, and we service our customers.
That's amazing. That's great. When you have the ability to bring joy. Pilots many times love just by de facto flying and that, but there's probably still nuances within coming to work for a particular airline where you have an impact on their everyday life. Maybe could you explain a little bit more? For someone that works in an office or works at home, you can maybe get that a little bit more with the environment you're working in. But how does that work from a pilot's perspective? How do you impact how it is going to work as a pilot in the cockpit?
Yeah, that's a great question. You think about, what makes a pilot's job, and I won't say easy, but, something that they enjoy doing, right? And how can my team remove those barriers from out in front that make it more seamless for them to do their job safely and efficiently? And as we all know, technology is huge. And, on the UPS ground side, you think about the package car drivers and the diodes that they have everything down to a science, right? No left turns. I know how many steps it is here. Everything is very methodical and really well oiled. And we're trying to have that model here at the airline as well. And so we have iPads, which we call electronic flight kits. And those have cell connectivity. So there's various applications on that help the pilots do their job better. Recently, we got rid of paper flight plans, and now we have an application where the electronic flight briefing package is inside the electronic flight kit. Crew members can see their flight plans before they show up to work, so they're more easily prepared to do what they're getting ready to go do. There's an application on there that helps for de-icing and holdover times, right? So it's all about how do we employ technology for safety and to also help them do their jobs. And we continue to look at different technologies that can help us be safer and make that experience better.
And so, as a chief pilot, how often are you flying versus some of the other, pilots that are, part of the UPS family?
Yeah, so I'll say on average, our line pilots fly week on, week off trips. Sometimes if you're on the 747 fleet, more international, you might fly, a 12-day trip, like a little bit longer trips. Maybe if you're domestic, you might fly shorter trips, but on average, week on, week off. Obviously, with the postal contract now, we have a lot more flying during the day. So really the day and the nighttime flying is more balanced. So if crew members want to fly the night sort stuff, that's an option. If they'd rather fly during the day, back and forth across the country, that's an option. So a lot more availability for line crew members. I wish I got to fly more. I love to fly. It's like a vacation when I get to go fly. My goal is to fly 4 flights a month. So it's well above what the FAA mandate is, which is 3 takeoff and landings every 90 days. But it's a great opportunity for me to get out, see everybody, and fly, and really see how well the operation runs and how well our crew members are trained to operate.
Well, very cool. I'm sure you enjoyed the opportunity to get in the cockpit.
I do, and then when we get into peak season, right, for the holiday season in December, then the management folks tend to fly a lot more as well, because you can imagine the number of flights and block hours really are high, and to the point where sometimes we have to have peak lease carriers come in as help us as well, because we don't have enough assets to support the massive amount of volume that comes, especially as you approach the Christmas season. So. Yeah, I am looking forward to doing more flying in December, and looking forward to a great peak.
Awesome. When you think of UPS and other cargo carriers, the time of day, you think of them flying at night a lot. Is that true, or is that just kind of perception? And is there anything, if it is more night flying in that, is there anything in particular that you do differently, or crews have to be concerned about more if they're flying more at night than during the day?
A great question. Yeah, so in a general sense, right, the night sorts here in Louisville at Worldport is our main sorting facility, and so we'll have roughly 120 flights that'll come in between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. All of that volume gets sorted, and then basically between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. those 120 flights go back out and servicing our customers. Here in Louisville, we have private sleep rooms that crew members can utilize and get a nap. So yeah, I mean, you have to find ways to get rest when you can and mitigate the effects of fatigue. As I mentioned earlier with the post office stuff and volume increasing more during the day as well. So now the day and the night are closer balanced. But historically, the night stuff would have been a little bit more than it would have been during the day.
And so, as chief pilot, I wanted to double click on a couple of things, because obviously the safety, security, reliability of the pilots and the flight overall is paramount, right? But there's also so many other things that essentially go on behind the scenes, right? That essentially becomes then your job to protect the group of pilots as well, right? And so one great example here is when contracts are being negotiated and things like that, right? And recently in Canada, we had this really prolonged kind of situation with the Air Canada pilots, where it just got stretched quite significantly, up to the point where there was almost a strike and things like that. So just walk us through that dynamic, right? And what is the role of the chief pilot in such situations, and what are the key things that you're looking at in order to ensure that both parties get the right deal?
Yeah, so our pilots are part of the Independent Pilots Association, the IPA. So they have their own pilot union, and they negotiate. They have a negotiating committee that negotiates with UPS proper. Here in flight operations, we have a labor group and folks that do the specific negotiating. We started our contract negotiation with our pilots this past summer. So they're meeting now regularly and going through all the various pieces of the contract. And that's a long process. The contract that we're operating under right now is from 2016, and then there was a couple of 2-year extensions during the COVID timeframe. When I go talk to the groups of folks, I often get that question, and I trust that the folks that are negotiating, both from the company side as well as the union side, right, they're going to find a win-win-win solution, right? Support our pilots, support our company, and support our customers. Can't be a land grab, and it's all about trying to find the right balance. It's not always easy to do, but I'm confident that we work hard together to try to find those win-win-win solutions. So the other thing I tell the pilots is, we have to work together to control what we can control. And, as far as, avoiding complacency on the flight deck, making sure that we're staying focused on the mission and getting the job done safely, not letting politics get in the cockpit, not letting contract negotiations get in the way, right? Because when you start taking your eye off the ball, then you start having safety issues. So another great thing from my position is I'm able to communicate with our pilots once a week on Fridays. So I send out a chief pilot information line and get to talk about whatever's going on at the time, and just trying to help us make sure that we all understand what's important, where we're going, and what the vision is.
That's great. In addition to your role in the management structure of the flight ops, how is the rest of flight operations structured at UPS? Are there separate departments? Are there different roles in different leadership roles in that?
Yeah. So holistically, UPS Corporation's in Atlanta. And then we have the airline, which is a region within the company, and it's based here in Louisville. And in the region, you have flight operations, you have maintenance, and you have the air district, which owns Worldport. That's the big sort facility. So within flight operations, Houston Mills is our president of flight operations. He's been in that role now for almost 6 years. And he's a Marine and does a fantastic job leading holistically with flight operations. And then underneath Houston, obviously myself. And from the pilot perspective, we have a director of operations, and then we have a director of training and standards. So those are the 3 pilots that are on the flight staff. And then obviously you have other departments as well, whether it's finance and accounting, and whether it's crew logistics and dispatch, and all of those various groups that help make flight operations run, right? It's a big organization. We have a global operations center here in Louisville, which is where we have our core that controls all the flights, has meteorology, has maintenance, has contingency, scheduling, and everything. But it's a big machine, as you can imagine.
Lots of opportunities too, it sounds like, for people, even if you're not a pilot, but you're interested in engaging with flight operations, just a lot of different ways to engage with your team.
Yeah, it's a great point. So we have a lot of folks that'll get hired in the air district and sorting packages and become part-time soups, and they want to move up into the organization, and they'll be either a technician in scheduling, or they'll be a supervisor in contingency, or they'll go get their dispatch license. So yeah, just a lot of opportunities to be a UPSer, and we have another thing called the Metro United Way, so where the company will help pay your college tuition while you're going through school and working at UPS. And many folks go through that plan and then continue to work themselves up through the organization over the years. They envision they're going to spend 3, 4, 5 years here. The next thing they know, they're spending 30 years in a career.
Yeah, that's great. And as you grow, especially with the USPS contract, will most of the future pilots be hired in the Louisville area, or are you going to also expand regionally?
So I think the USPS stuff was mainly domestic. So Anchorage at about 600 pilots. That's just a 747 domicile for us. Hopefully international volume continues to grow as well. And, obviously staffing and pilot numbers is all based upon block hours and volume and all that stuff. So hopefully the business continues to grow, and we need more pilots, and then we would expand, in the applicable arenas. Most of our new hire classes nowadays, probably 2/3 of them are based in Louisville. But we are hiring folks onto all of the fleets as we bring them on.
So when your flights go all around the world and there's times where you have legs, unlike a passenger airline where you can't carry passengers between two separate international destinations, on cargo it's different, right? So you have crews that can be going stop to stop internationally, but are they all based still in the US or do you have international domiciles as well?
Yeah, so they're all based at those four domiciles that I'd mentioned before. So, we have a flight like Louisville to Narita, as an example. That's a 747 that goes daily, or from Louisville out to Dubai. They'll go out there, they'll lay over, and then they'll continue their trip, either around the world or, back to Anchorage. So yeah, it's those four domiciles support the global operation.
And just to clarify that it's not just the two pilots going there and back, right? I guess it's more pilots and then they're doing shifts on the aircraft itself.
So it depends on the length of the flight. Those are all FAR driven. So anything under 8 hours would be 2 crew members. 8 to 12 is 3 crew members, and then over 12 hours is 4 crew members.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's great insight. Just switching gears, since Peter and I are such geeks, I want to talk, and this is not a question I can ask too many people out there. Talk to us about the MD11, right? What's you've been flying it for a while, so I just want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I feel so blessed I think about my career in 1993 to start flying the KC-10, which you guys know that's a DC-10 that the Air Force made a tanker out of it. And so flew that for 20 plus years, and then lucky enough to come to UPS and be on the MD11. So I've been a Douglas guy now since 1993, with that 1 year exception of flying the 7576 at United. And I'll say, Douglas, the MD11 was an amazing airplane, and when they built it, it was way ahead of its time. For example, the avionics that are on it are well more advanced than a lot of the modern airplanes. So it's a great airplane. Obviously, it's a 3-engine airplane, so burns a little bit more fuel compared to a twin-engine airplane. And when Boeing bought McDonnell Douglas, I think that was kind of the start of this transition away from the older Douglas airplanes and more towards the newer Boeing airplanes. But the folks that fly the MD11 absolutely love the MD11. It's got a little cult following to it, and it will be a sad day when the last MD11 goes away. On a side note, the Air Force retired the last KC-10 about a month ago. So I was able to go out to California and see the last KC-10, taxi out and take off, did a little pattern around and picked up 2 F-15s and then flew off into the sunset. And the Air Force had bought 60 of them, and that was the last one.
That's awesome. So one thing about the MD11 that they actually shrunk the vertical stabilizer versus the DC10, which made it a little bit different. Is it noticeable from a pilot's perspective? Like when you flew the KC-10 and then coming over to the MD11, is there a noticeable aerodynamic difference that you feel?
Yeah, I'm not sure I would use the word shrunk. It's a third smaller, to your point. It flies a little bit differently, and I think our competitor had the MD10 and MD11. So the MD10 had the DC10 type tail, and the MD11 had the third smaller horizontal stab. Yeah, they do fly a little bit differently. I think if that's all you're flying, then I don't think it's really that noticeable. Like I said, it flies very well, but it flies fast too. So it's not one of those airplanes that if you get behind, it's easy to catch up. You got to stay on top of it and stay ahead of it, and it treats you well if you do that.
Okay, very interesting. And a hypothetical question here, right? Let's say the MD11s are retired. And you are given a choice of which airplane you want to go fly. What would that airplane be and why?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I often get that question because that time is coming. And there's pros and cons to each answer. And it's not clear in my mind yet exactly what I'm going to go do. The 7576 is our workhorse, without a doubt. we have 75 757s, and I think we have 95 767s. We have another 20 plus 767s coming from Boeing as new freighters. And the 76 goes basically everywhere around the world for us. So it's much, I'll say, more convenient and easy to go fly it in my position. So that's probably where I will go. But there is also a little bit of an allure of the 747. We have 30-8s, and then we have, I think, 13 400s. So that's a great airplane as well. Obviously, it goes all over the world, but those are long haul flights. And in my position and my flying availability makes it a little bit more challenging to do that. So I'll probably hang on to the MD11 for a while longer, and then maybe in 26 or so take a look at it.
Sounds good. We'll have to check back in.
Yeah,
See
absolutely.
what your answer is.
Have you guys been to Louisville before?
I have
not.
No.
All right. Well, there's an open invitation. Come see me.
Awesome.
Yeah, maybe we could actually end up doing like a Louisville podcast, right, Peter? And then just like get different people from UPS to come and chat live while there's airplanes flying behind us. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, do come look at our airplanes and come look at our simulators. It's a great place to see and visit.
Awesome. Well, UPS is the airplane spotter's dream, especially when you live in smaller locations, because you guys, fly some big airplanes into some small airports. But from a flight ops perspective, does that create challenges or considerations that are unique when you're flying such a large airplane into airports that don't typically invite that large of an airplane for passengers?
It definitely can. And to your point, some of these airports have shorter runways. So, we're big users of the SMS process, and we risk assess all new airports. We risk assess, runway lengths and conditions to make sure that what we're going to go do is safe. And a lot of these airports, to your point, aren't used to seeing wide bodies. And we're probably the only wide body in town that comes and visits them. But for the most part, we've obviously looked at all the taxiways and the runways and where we park with UPS and making sure it can handle the wide bodies. But it is, to your point, it is something to be aware of. And some of these fields are also uncontrolled. And most of the time, big airplanes don't go into uncontrolled fields regularly. So things that we have to think about and also train and review through our continuing qualification program.
Wow, that's very interesting as well. And so, if there's pilots out there that really want to, either they're in training or they want to, pursue those opportunities, right? Any advice that you have for them on specific things that they should focus on, or specific, aircraft to pick, or is diversity the name of the game these days, right?
Yeah, I'll take, you said diversity. Were you talking diversity of aircraft or diversity of
Aircraft.
Yeah. I think that, in a general sense, experience flying, right, is something that you can never overstate. And being out in the system, flying, building hours is really, really important. From my perspective, I'm looking for somebody that can obviously fly from A to B, right? That's the given. But I'm also looking for those other skills when I think about, I'm looking for a leader, right? And when I talk to the new hires, it's like, I know you can fly from A to B, right? That's why you're here. But I'm also looking for a leader that's going to help us be better tomorrow, right? And I think about the culture that we're building here. And I want somebody that's going to own safety and service, going to be professionals. And I think about the continuous learning and being better tomorrow than we are today. And you're a team player. And when young folks are out building their resume and gaining experience in the industry, it's not just about A to B, but what else are you doing, right? To build yourself and build the holistic package that you have. And anything that you can do to differentiate yourself from the person over there, right? And have that passion, that zest like you guys do for aviation, like I do, that work ethic. right? And that you're reliable and you have integrity and you're going to show up and do the best job that you can do, and how you can package all of that in your resume to give to us, right? That really helps sell who you are. So that's what I'm looking for. I'll mention one other thing for the younger folks. We have a program called the Flight Path Program, and it's for basically interns. So most of the folks that are part of this program, we have 12 at any given time. Most of them are they're college graduates. They usually have 200 to 400 hours. Most of them are CFIs, or they're working towards getting their CFI. And they apply, and if they're accepted, they spend a year with us working in flight ops. Might work in my office, might work in the training center, maybe tech and safety, a bunch of different jobs. Then after they spend the year here, they go off and they can go work at our one of our smaller cargo carriers, Ameriflight. So they go fly Beach 1900s, Metroliners, Brazilias, gaining more experience, right? Gaining their hours. And then when they get their 1,500 hours, then they're able to come back and interview with us for a line pilot position. And that's been a very successful program for us. And I think about, succession planning and seeing these 25, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids come through, and the great work that they do and that passion that they have for aviation. It's very encouraging. Love the program.
That's great. And it's a transition, right? From, like, you look at your background is a more similar background, of bringing military experience, right? Gaining your flight experience in the military and then bringing it to the civilian world. But that's becoming less common these days, it seems. So these types of programs seem to really be helpful for the next generation that doesn't have that military background.
They are.
On that light, though, where the military is going, it seems more U.S. military is with unmanned aerial vehicles, where you have pilots that are flying from a station on the ground. Is that a pathway potentially if someone has been doing that in the military and then wants to get into flying actual aircraft? Is that a pathway, or not so much, or?
Not so much. We don't have a path for that. If they have, if they went through fixed wing school and became a pilot and then flew and then did some drone stuff, we've had some of that. But if you're a straight drone person from start to finish, we don't have a path for that. There are other companies that have that kind of path, but not us.
Very interesting. And as we close out this section, I wanted to talk about two very tragedy driven but very important incidents as well in the history of UPS. So it's basically Flight 6 and Flight 1354. And I know you were at UPS when those two incidents happened, and you're an integral part of the family assistance support team as well. So just talk us through, those two incidents specifically, and how that impacted the safety culture at UPS, and what is the family assistance support team doing?
Yeah, thank you. I look back on both of those accidents, and they were very tragic accidents. I feel blessed to have been able to be a part of the family assistance support team during both of those events. The Flight 6 was the accident over in Dubai, and I was able to be part of the first officer's widow and go be with her down in Florida, and then fly over to Dubai so she could see the site, and then escort her back to Florida as well. And then 1354 down in Birmingham, being part of that and escorting the captain from Birmingham to the Carolinas where he was from, and to deliver the body to the family. And we talk about leading with empathy, right, and thinking about the people that we work with and how we help people, and that's what that program's all about, right? When people are grieving and going through a hard time, to be able to help them through those difficult times. And both of those events obviously are something that's life-changing to be part of, but great amount of satisfaction to be able to be with those families and help them through those periods. And I think from flight operations, we review, those incidences on a regular basis. And, it's important that we know what's behind us, right? That rear view mirror to make sure we know where we've been. But at the same token, right, you think about an airplane and a windscreen in front of us, and there's this big window going out, and that's the direction we're going. And to make sure that we're making things better and safer every day and more efficient to run the best operation that we can. And we've made, a lot of enhancements to our oxygen mask and goggles that are on the airplane as a result of the Dubai accident. We have these macro light containers now that we carry on board, which are fire suppressant type containers that if you have a lithium battery inside, that they're rated to contain that fire for a significant amount of time. We've changed many of our procedures and how we fly non-precision approaches, which we call non-ILSs now, based upon what we learned from the Birmingham accident. So, we're a much better company today, and we'll continue to be better tomorrow and in the future because of things like that and many other things.
Yeah, thanks for that. And like I said, it's we often underestimate how much impact these incidents have, because in general, aviation has a sense of proactiveness to it, but it's also a very reactive industry, right? From a safety perspective, when things happen, we understand why it happened, and then we make sure it never happens again. So I feel like incidents like these become a big part of the entire safety culture for decades, right? And I think via the family assistance program as well, you're ensuring that, with all the core values that UPS have, they remain intact as well. So really great job to you and the entire UPS team for really ensuring that all of these values are kept intact.
Thank you.
Cool. Anything we've missed over the past 30-40 minutes that you'd like to talk about?
Wow. Like you said, we could talk for 4 hours. I think that, UPS holistically and flight ops and our pilots, I really look at us as a world-class organization, and the team, when we look at our pilot onboarding experience, we look at the new captain process that we go through, and the support that our crew members have to operate safely every day, the robust SMS system that we have, and really, the line crew members that are out flying every day and giving us the information and the feedback through our event reporting system to identify the hazards that are out there and the risks, so we can mitigate those and put things in place to make it better, right? It's a really robust system right now. And I think, you never know what tomorrow holds, right? In this role, I wake up thinking I'm doing ABC and it ends up being XYZ. It's a box of chocolates, but it's one of the things I love. And, as long as you have the right sight picture and the right focus, and which I think we do, and taking care of our folks, we operate a very safe operation, and we take care and service our customers.
Nice. Yeah. And thanks for that. We're going to transition into the next section of the podcast, and this is just a few key things to get to know you specifically.
Okay.
So name one hard skill and one soft skill that you feel is required to succeed in your role.
I think I talked a little bit about them before, and I hate saying there's one, right? Because one really doesn't do it. I think that, I mentioned leadership before, and I think that can be a soft or hard, kind of a combination of both. But, obviously technical prowess in our business, right? And knowing SOPs and executing and flying safely, that's a key core competency. But I think, along with that, making sure that, your work ethic, right, and you're delivering what you say you're going to deliver on, is kind of that hard skill piece. And then the soft skill, I think I mentioned before, leading with empathy, right, and the teamwork and the communication skills are so important. You think about CRM, right? That used to be the cockpit resource management. Now it's crew resource management. We don't fly single seat airplanes. So everything you're doing on the flight deck, there's another person or multiple people there. And our job is to make sure we're collaborating, not just within the flight deck, but also calling dispatch and maintenance and, the whole group, and making sure you're making the best collective decision. So those communication skills are extremely important to be successful.
Yeah, well said. What's your fondest aviation memory?
Summarizing 30 plus years.
I was going to say he needs a few more years of experience on it.
Yeah,
to
right.
Really have an answer for that one.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple of unique ones. So, believe it or not, I remember, and I was like 5 or 6, and I remember it because I've seen pictures of it. But me with my mom out at SeaTac, standing next to a DC10 tire, and the tire was taller than myself. And it's funny, I do the walk around now on the MD11, and I walk by these, big tires. And I often think about that as a kid, and this tire was taller than me back then. So that's kind of one of those infant stories. But in the military, I think one of the cooler ones was I was getting ready to leave the reserves and come to UPS, was doing a KC-10 flight to Moscow. And it was for the Moscow Air Show. So think about this. Dragging 2 B-1s out of Ellsworth to Moscow with a KC-10. Imagine that in 2005 with 2 B-1s showing up in Moscow for an air show. That was pretty cool.
I'm sure the audience in Moscow, Idaho, was really impressed.
Yeah, if it was only Idaho. Yeah, so that was very unique. And I think about MD11, one of the ones that stands out is we had a flight MD11 that had a problem coming out of Cologne, and they ended up diverting into Iceland, into Keflavik. They thought they fixed the problem, took off, and same problem as a battery charging issue, ended up going into Sonderstrom in Greenland. And I got the call, and we ended up taking a 7.6 from Louisville with parts and mechanics and up there. And we went up to Sonderstrom, and they worked on the airplane, fixed it. And then myself and another guy flew the airplane out of Sonderstrom back to Louisville. That was a unique event.
Yeah, that's some experience there. Cool. What part of aviation do you feel is least understood by the general public, and what can they do to learn more?
Well, you brought up the family assistance support team, and I think probably the average person doesn't understand the responsibilities that every airline has to make sure that, in the event of a tragedy, that process is ironclad to take care of all the families that are part of that. And then the other one is kind of more of a UPS thing. It's funny, I'll run into somebody and I'll say, what do you do? And I work for UPS. And what do you do? I'm with the airline. They're like, UPS has an airline. And so not understanding what UPS does, right, from an airline perspective, and our roughly 290 airplanes and 3,400 pilots that are flying around the globe every day delivering their packages. So sharing the wealth with UPS. Yeah,
it's often not known, right, that there's an airline, and these days, FedEx and then Amazon, and there's an airline everywhere, right?
So you guys like the trivia thing. I'll ask you a trivia question. So what's the most trusted brand in the United States? And I'll give you, it's not UPS, but what do you think the most trusted brand is?
In aviation or in general?
No, just in general.
I don't know. Peter, any guesses?
Peter, you got a guess?
Trusted brand.
Most trusted brand.
Maybe like a Coca-Cola.
So it happens to be Band-Aid.
Ah.
And the reason I bring it up is UPS is number 2. So, you think about UPS and that shield. The UPS shield means a lot to us. So do you know what year UPS started? 1907.
Wow. I was going to say,
think about that. 117 years ago. And they started in Seattle. And if you go actually downtown Seattle, there's a little marker in the sidewalk of where Jim Casey started the the UPS journey. But I mean, you talk about 117 years old and the things that they've done over the years to innovate and change what they do every day. And now it's obviously not just a company that delivers packages, but it's a full-blown logistical company that helps companies navigate all that stuff.
Yeah. I can guarantee
failed our trivia, Ashwin.
Yeah, I know,
Ashamed.
and I can guarantee you.
I'm warming you up because I know I'm probably going to fail your trivia.
Look out, Captain Whiteman. I'm going to change my
payback.
questions, maybe.
Yeah. But I can guarantee you, Peter's going to take these 2 questions, and somebody's going to get them in the future as part.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Speaking of trivia, I think we can transition to that and then give Jeff some payback here.
That's not fair.
I think you'll do just fine. Well, here's your trivia round, Captain Whiteman. So for every guest, as you've heard on our previous episodes, we ask 5 questions from the depths of my trivia brain here. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Your first question, airplane spotting. Can you identify either of these aircraft by their 4-wheeled front landing gears? You may have seen some of these in your...
Yeah, so that's a very unique airplane, both of them, and obviously because they're very large.
That is correct.
And I think probably the one C5.
That is one of them. Yes.
C5, and then the other one is probably the Antonov.
Care to guess which one?
The biggest one.
Oh, shoot. You shouldn't have taken that gander. It is not the biggest one.
Oh, it's not the biggest one.
No.
Is it
It's the 124.
124.
You've already surpassed the question. I only asked you to identify one of them, and you already went past. But very well done. So indeed, the one on the left here, 4 wheels, but on 1 axle, which is interesting, is the C5. The Antonov has 4 wheels, but on 2 axles there, or 2 gears.
So the Antonov, the 124 is not the biggest Antonov.
No, there was the 224, which it had 6 engines.
6 engines, yeah.
And an H tail. So it was massive. There was only a couple of them built though. So yeah. Well done.
Can we quit now? I'm 100%.
Plus some. Oh no, we gotta see how much you know here. Let's go. Number 2. John F. Kennedy Airport. How many separate passenger terminals? So not something a UPS pilot may pay attention to so much, but passenger terminals does New York's JFK Airport currently have?
I would go with, I want to say 4 or 5.
You're going to have to pick one.
I'm going to go with 5.
I'll say one of those is correct.
I'm going to go 5.
Good guess.
Oh.
You're 2 for 2. The odd thing, though, is over time, they're not numbered sequentially. So there's actually the name of Terminal 8, Terminal 7, Terminal 6, but there are no Terminals 2 or 3. They've been consolidated in. So you are correct. 5 terminals at JFK today.
Can we stop now?
Nope. We're going. All right. This one has a UPS flavor.
Oh!
So, aircraft engines. UPS was an early adopter of the Stage 3 noise requirements in the 90s. And you guys actually replaced the engines on the 727 to name the Quiet Freighter. So you replaced the original Pratt & Whitney engines on the 727 with an engine from this manufacturer. And here in the picture you can see that Quiet Freighter on the left versus the Pratt & Whitney engines on the right of a traditional 727.
So who made the Quiet Freighter version engine is your question.
Yes, that is the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to go with GE.
There weren't too many to choose from, but unfortunately you went with the wrong one.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Rolls-Royce. Rolls-Royce Tay engines is what replaced it. Were Stage 3 compliant.
And what's interesting is for those that can look at the Aeroscope Aviation YouTube channel or just look it up, the UPS quiet freighter, the inlet to the number 2 engine had to be enlarged to be able to get the right ratios of everything. So very unique looking airplane. All right, ICAO codes. This one is symmetrical front and back. It's YSSY, Yankee, Sierra, Sierra, Yankee. Can you name this reference?
It's been a while since I've been there, but I think that's Sydney.
Indeed it is. Sydney's Kingsford Airport. And there's a picture of one of your UPS 74s on the Kingston Airport.
So back in the day, the MD11 used to go there, and that was one of my favorite trips. It's, you take off out of Honolulu, go into Sydney, and passing about 18,000 feet is the last time you talk on the radios. Next, it's all CPDLC for 10 hours until you get down to Sydney area in Brisbane.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Cool. All right. You're doing well. You're doing well. Last questions. This one's going to be maybe a tricky one, too. Airlines, can you name 4? We're going to only have 4 of the 13 airlines that are partially or wholly owned by the Lufthansa Group. They actually have stakes or wholly owned 13 airlines. Can you name 4 of them?
So the simple answer is no. I think, you have Lufthansa Airlines.
Yes, that is 1.
You have Lufthansa Cargo.
That is 2. Yes.
German Wings.
Yes. 3.
That was a good one.
Excellent guess. Your deduction is you're doing well deducing. There's another airline that has the Lufthansa in the name, and then there's some other national carriers.
There's some other German.
Ashwin, do you want to help them out?
There's a couple of neighboring country airlines that Lufthansa owns right next to Germany, if you want to try that approach.
German-speaking countries, some of them.
I've been to Cologne a bunch, but you're not asking me about Kolsch or any of those types of questions.
No, so I think Swiss is owned by Lufthansa. And
Swiss Airs?
Yeah, yep. And Brussels Airlines is owned by Lufthansa as well. And I think Lufthansa City Line, all of these.
Yep.
Yeah,
Eurowings. Eurowings was the one I could visualize it, but I couldn't think of it. Yep.
Yeah. No, very well done. 3 out of 4 that we asked you for. But for our listeners, there's Lufthansa, Lufthansa Cargo, Lufthansa City Line, Discover Airlines, Austrian, Brussels Airlines, Swiss, Edelweiss, Sun Express, Air Dolomiti, Eurowings, Germanwings, and the most recent acquisition is ITA Airways in Italy. So, wow, you did very good. We'll give you 3.5 points. I think,
I'll take it.
Which is very good. So, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. I thank you guys for your passion in the aviation industry and helping share the great news and what goes on in our industry and helping folks learn about it. It's obviously a fascinating industry. And if I can help you guys with anything going forward, please let me know. We'd love to have you out to Louisville as well.
Absolutely. And all we can ask for is you keep listening and watching our podcast and keep spreading the good word. And I can't believe we've packed so much into the last 40, 45, 50, whatever minutes, right? It's just unbelievable. We've covered so many different topics and we've learned so much, Jeff. So thanks a lot for sharing your passion and your experience with us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us this week. Send us any feedback, trivia ideas, or future topics you may have to our email at aeropedia.podcast@gmail.com. See you on the next leg of our journey.
Bye for now.
Departure any heavy, contact departure 119.2, good night.
119.2, speed 290 heavy.